Welcome to CareHero podcast, where our mission is to educate, motivate, and inspire nurses and other healthcare professionals. In each episode, we explore how our guests successfully advance their careers and improve the lives of their patients and residents. We share practical tips and success stories to illustrate how you, our care heroes, can grow in your own personal and professional lives.
Hello, Care Heroes. Welcome back to the show. We're your hosts, Martin Hoy.
And I'm Gerard Hernandez. We've got an exceptional guest on today's Care Hero podcast episode.
We have Dr. Linda Hofler, a clinical assistant professor at East Carolina University College of Nursing, and an experienced senior clinical leader and healthcare executive hailing from Greenville, North Carolina.
Oh, experienced indeed. That's right, Martin. She's an accomplished healthcare professional with 40 years of clinical experience and more than 3 decades of healthcare leadership experience.
What a career she has and continues to have. We'll be talking about her journey from a farm in Wisconsin to bedside nursing, to nurse management, and now to education. And all of this has given us some great stuff to talk about, including the value of hard work and finding your own path, the importance of embracing curiosity and being open to learning, how anyone can step up their game in an emergency or crisis situation, the power of jumping into the unknown and being willing to take risks, and also to never forget our humanity and always practice kindness, respect, and compassion.
Sounds wonderful, Martin. Let's go. Dr. Hofler, welcome to the show.
I'm so excited to be with you today.
We always start off our show with this question. All of our care heroes, including yourself, are superheroes. But if you had to choose one superpower, what would that be and why?
I always defer to kindness. It's not really maybe a superpower, but I find that when people know that you're a kind person, they're more likely to trust you and to invite you into things, and you get to experience things together. I have found that I think our world needs a whole lot more kindness.
I couldn't agree more, and we look forward to hearing about your career, where we are certain there's no shortage of kindness you have shown throughout it.
All right.
So Linda, you have 40 years of clinical experience and more than 3 decades of healthcare leadership experience. Very impressive, accomplished career indeed. Could you tell us a little bit about your life story, your background, and how you got into healthcare?
You know, I tell people I think nursing found me. It wasn't a career path that I really aspired to. But what I've learned as I've gotten older is that I think some of the basic tenets of nursing, caring and kindness and empathy and curiosity, have been a part of my life since I was a child. My grandparents were dairy farmers in Wisconsin. It's funny, the things you experience as a child and how they influence where you end up. I didn't realize at the time that my summers spent on the farm were really free daycare. My parents both worked, but they dropped us kids off at the farm, and we spent time there with my grandparents, working hard and having a lot of fun. My grandmother was a pioneer, say, of many respects. You know, she was born in the early 1900s. She actually went to college and was going to be a teacher. And then her family said, you can't move away. So she ended up marrying a farmer and living out her life on the farm. But because she was an educated woman, she always expected a lot from us. She'd say, stand tall and be proud of who you are. Things that were little bits of wisdom that at the time you don't really appreciate. I think she instilled a lot of curiosity in me. So fast forward, I graduated from high school at a time where career opportunities for women were not nearly as expansive as they are today. You could be a teacher or a nurse or a secretary. And a lot of my friends are those things. My high school guidance counselor, I remind him of this often, said I probably wasn't college material and maybe I shouldn't go. I look back and I've had, as you said, a 40-year career in nursing, 30 years or more in leadership experience. My last job was working in a $2 billion company as a senior executive, leading a workforce of more than 3,000 nurses, and I have a PhD. So much for his prediction. Being from a family that really didn't have a lot of means, but they had a lot of love and a lot of caring, kindness, curiosity have helped me all along the way. I just love people. And so when you're a relationship sort of person, you'll end up in places if you're not afraid to go there. I remind my kids all the time, I paid for every bit of my school myself. My parents didn't have money to send me to school. My husband and I both had student loans when we got married, and we worked hard to pay that off. You know, whether it was chopping tobacco or picking corn or milking cows or working full-time while you're in school so that you can live on your own and pay your bills, it teaches you what you can and can't do without. and how to live within your means. There's a woman that I met early in my career who pushed me. I can remember it well because there are many things that I would have never done in my career had it not been for her. She was an amazing professional. We were close to the same age, and she already had a graduate degree. And she was like, you need to go back to graduate school. And she's the person, too, that said, oh, you should come and present this topic at this series of workshops I'm doing. I'm like, I don't talk in front of people. She'd say, yeah, I'm working on the schedule and I think you should teach this class. I'm like, I'm not doing it. She said, it'll be a small group. And before I knew it, the calendar was posted. My name was by the presentation. And I was like, how did this happen? And I remember the day, too. We were in a long, skinny room, and the room was packed, and it was hot. And I lasted through it. And at the end, she said, you did a great job. And I was thinking the whole time, I'm just thankful I didn't die. But she and I became close friends, and she's putting me in those situations that stretched my capacity, which then helped my confidence. Now I did a national presentation too this last year with Press Ganey with lots of national leaders. I've had the opportunity to be in front of crowds of 1,000, and I haven't fainted or messed up. That one person pushing you and then you not being afraid to step in. If I hadn't trusted her to have my back, I probably never would have done it, and I wouldn't have had the opportunities that I've had in my career.
So currently, you're a clinical assistant professor at East Carolina University College of Nursing. Could you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so that's a new role for me. I decided this last year in the global pandemic that it was probably time to examine my life-work balance. I've been a chief nurse in a really big hospital for almost 12 years. What I realized is the team around me, we're going to be the people that we're going to have to lead that work for the long haul. And so I decided to step away, which was another risk, and move into the academic environment. I tell people now all the time, I maybe underestimated what it was like to go from a job where you could do a lot of things with your hand behind your back to a new role where now I'm the novice and I'm having to learn everything again. I'm teaching online, which is not something I've ever done before. I have a teaching partner in the class that I'm teaching right now around leadership. It's a really good way to take all the things I've learned from a clinical and a leadership perspective and help prepare the next generation. ECU, or East Carolina University, is the largest nursing school in the state of North Carolina. They are highly esteemed and produce great nurses. And I've also have had the opportunity this last year. I chair the university board of visitors. It's been with a lot of pride as a 2-time graduate from the school and now faculty there to also be able to share experiences firsthand with people from other disciplines and other walks of life.
Certainly. And so even though you're talking about seeing healthcare change, you are doing something about that. It's just at a different level now on the educational side.
Yeah, what I've found, and I've always believed it, but I'm experiencing it firsthand, is that a nurse leader can lead in anywhere, whether it's from the bedside to the boardroom. And so there's lots of ways to still be able to help support what's happening in healthcare. And I am also started doing some clinical back for my employer. So we launched a mega vaccination site last week. And I was there on day one. I got to give shots, and I told people, I said, I left with a smile on my face and a pep in my step, because there's nothing more rewarding than getting feedback from grateful people. And every person that I got to give a shot to was so excited to be there. It was awesome. I get to go back again tomorrow, and I can't wait.
I want to touch on a little bit of what you said about healthcare being reinvented in front of you. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
This last year, I experienced things. I thought I'd seen a lot in my career, but I experienced things in a very different way. When in the matter of a week, you shut down all your normal operations, you close your hospital to visitors, you're worried whether or not you're going to have enough personal protective equipment for team members. You're responsible for making sure that those things are in place, and knowing that your team members are trying to learn how to take care of an illness that they've not ever seen before. What's been so fun to watch is all the innovation, because when you're in a crisis situation and you have to do things, people aren't afraid to change things on a dime. So imagine a 974-bed hospital stopping visitors You have to enable iPads and ways for video communication. You have to train people. We had Spanish interpreters that stepped up and said, we want to own this communication team for the nursing staff. So we'll be on call and we'll go and make sure that the team members have what they need. Some people that I expected to step up didn't. And some people just surprised the heck out of us, where all of a sudden it's like, where did you come from? And you are absolutely amazing. I got the chance to do the development work for our 9-hospital inpatient response. I worked with an industrial engineer. He and I, along with a couple physician leaders, designed our response plan to managing COVID for 9 hospitals. And we had to figure out how we were going to cohort patients and what kind of equipment we needed and how are we going to share. And so opportunity of a lifetime. And I never thought that's what I'd be doing. It's been the best and the worst of times, but I've just been so invigorated by watching the young team members that we have just stepping in and figuring it out. We've got a nurse that she's now kind of become the poster child for much of our media. Her name's Michaela. She's only been a nurse since 2017. I went up there to the unit to spend time with her, and she's like, we've figured this out, figured that out, and I'm really curious about this. And it was amazing. And everybody was rowing in the same direction with the same goal. Let's keep our patients safe and let's keep our team members safe.
In the heat of the crisis, people can really step up as you've shown. And it's great to hear that the new generation that you've passed the baton to has surely done so.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch, and it's just exciting to see. I just can't imagine what things will look like in the future. With President Biden appointing a nurse as the Surgeon General coming in. She's a decorated military nurse that's trained as an advanced practice nurse. There will be nurses at the table where every decision around healthcare is made in our future. I guess I hope that we'll influence a group of bright young people to desire to be nurses. It's one of the things that in volunteer work, I have found in our community that sometimes young people don't fully understand their opportunities as a nurse. And so they think, well, I'm going to be a doctor. And then when you start talking to them about what they want to do, they don't really fully understand how they can contribute in the profession of nursing.
What do you like most about this new academic role at ECU?
This is new to me. So I've been working with them since January. It gives me another perspective on how we influence people that are going to go into the workplace. In my last role, I had the opportunity to do a lot of work with ECU, spending time as a guest lecturer in their program. I just know how important it is that every last one of those nurses comes out prepared to lead in some capacity. And they still have to be curious. They still have to read. They still have to stay current. They have to be able to work with a team of people, which requires leadership skills. It's been interesting to me in taping my lectures and in us having conversations about how much commonality there is, no matter what model you talk about or no matter what job you talk about. Communication, accountability, relationship management, teamwork, they're all a component of being a successful member of the healthcare team. And nursing coordinates so much of the patient care. They have to be able to have those good skills. And so that's, to me, what's exciting about being a part of the academic team and being able to take the practical things that I learned and connect it to the academic piece and the theoretical piece.
You have an example probably of everything in the textbooks, right? That you could give them.
Yeah.
And I think to your other point, is like all these soft skills, yes, they're so important to be a successful nurse in no matter what capacity you do. And what we've seen too is, right, that even though the doctors or the physicians are the ones signing off, they have to be prepared that they're going to look to the nurses also for much of that care coordination.
It's definitely a partnership. Something that you said around just the thought of what it takes to be a nurse these days is that you can learn all the technical things. When you were talking about the textbook, I was a little bit relieved when I read all the chapters in the book that I was responsible for teaching. There wasn't anything in there that I didn't know about. So that was good. But taking that theory and then using examples from the real world, I think I'm well prepared to be able to do that.
You've had over 40 years of clinical experience, and now stepping into the classroom again, what's the most surprising thing that you've noticed?
I don't think it's really a surprise, but one of the things that I do know is that It doesn't matter when you learn to practice. So I've been a nurse 40 years. You've got nurses that are just coming out. The people that are attached to the machines are still the same. Fear looks the same. Pain looks the same. Uncertainty and worry looks the same. Making certain that the student doesn't get so focused on the technology that they miss the person that's attached to the machines. The entire time I was in a leadership role, I made a point to spend 2 or 3 shifts a year with a nurse. I'd go and work a 12-hour shift. I'd work side by side. And one thing really sticks out in my mind. We had a little lady who'd had part of her lung taken out, and we were getting her ready for discharge. The nurse was. She failed the walking test, so she was going to have to go home on oxygen. The person that on the home oxygen came in, and I could sit the whole time thinking, this woman's not hearing a word you're saying. And she wasn't hearing what she was saying because you know what she was worried about? She played bridge with a bunch of friends. They smoked in her kitchen, and she was going to have to put a sign on her door that said no smoking, oxygen in use. That's once she heard that, she didn't hear one other thing. Okay, being able to recognize worry, being able to recognize what really is on, that hasn't changed at all. They can be really good at starting IVs, or they can be really good at this, that, or the other. But if they're not really good at listening and understanding what the patient's perspective is, they're not going to help that person be as safe as they can be once they have to go home.
That's a great point. Medical equipment changes over time, but...
Oh my God, that and medicines.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And empathy in 1980 and 1970 is the same as empathy in 2020. Given that we're learning to navigate the pandemic together, and you've lived it for some time, and you were right at the beginning of this, what's the biggest challenge that you have in your current role as an educator? And how do you think you're preparing your students for a post-COVID world?
For a period of time, we didn't have students in the clinical, and they were learning using simulation and avatars and all sorts of really creative things. I had the privilege of watching my daughter learn through some of those because she was going to nursing school during the pandemic. She's like, come in here and look at this. And she did her psych rotation completely with simulation. The avatars that they used in the simulated environment interacted just like a real patient. When you looked on the screen, they looked like a real patient. They talked to you like a real patient. And she got a really good experience. Now, can it completely replace the human interaction? Probably not. But she got a really good experience, and I was pretty surprised. The universities didn't miss a beat in trying to keep their students safe and making sure that they were well prepared. I want to make sure the students that I get a chance to teach understand their role as a leader from the time they walk on the unit. It's really easy as a new person to not be confident. It's easier to step back. And you have to do some of that. I mean, you have to learn and you have to listen and you have to ask questions. But sometimes those students, because they have such a rigorous coursework and they have been through the rigor, they sometimes will see things that somebody that's been working 20 years doesn't even see. And so making certain that they understand from day one, when they step on the unit, they have a leadership role. And some of that leadership role is building relationships, again, learning good communication, being able to see the things that they know need to be done in a certain way. I think that, again, with innovation and some of the things that will come out of the pandemic, our young professionals, they're going to continue to innovate, and they'll find new and creative ways for us to deliver care. I think about the aging population and the baby boomers and others who the last place they want to be is in the hospital. Used to be sick people wanted to go to, or ended up in the nursing home. They're not going to the nursing homes now. And so nursing care is going to look a whole lot different with the educated consumer, with people getting care in their homes. And nursing in hospitals is going to continue to be highly technology dependent because the people that are in hospitals are going to be really sick. And we did a lot in my past organization with virtual video surveillance, the concept of using sitters for patients that have dementia or tend to wander to keep them safe. We had a cockpit. We had people monitoring it. They could stay in touch with the nurse and let them know if there was something going wrong. And it helped us be more efficient. And so some of the fiscal realities in healthcare are going to force us to be more efficient. You mentioned the soft skills, but the soft skills become some of the most important skills because you got to be able to delegate. You got to be able to use technology. You've got to be able to communicate. You got to have good relationships. And if you're not able to do that, it'll be hard to be successful in what's probably going to be the new wave of healthcare.
So, Linda, speaking of your past organizations, touched briefly about your leadership experience at Vidant Health. So, there you led the magnet redesignation process, correct?
Twice.
Twice, yeah. The initial and
Initial
the redesignation.
And redesignation, yes.
Yes. So for our care heroes, may I ask you to quickly discuss what it means to be a magnet hospital and why was this coveted honor in nursing and patient care important for you and your organization to obtain?
Being a magnet designated organization means that you've committed to excellence in nursing. Just to get in the door, you have to be a top performer in outcomes. It's a symbol of a culture that allows nurses to practice at top of license, that it nurtures and develops them. Whether or not an organization is magnet designated or not, if they use the magnet framework, they'll create a culture that values the voice of the nurse, that has nurses at the table where they need to be making decisions, and that has structures and processes in place that help people develop professionally. I'm really proud of our accomplishments. Magnet is a great framework to help build those things in nursing that produce better outcomes for patients. You guys have probably read too all the evidence that education is a path to economic improvement in your community. I do remember conversations with some of my colleagues in our community hospitals. They're like, oh, we could never have that. And now every one of the hospitals, all 9 of them, all their managers have bachelor's degrees. Most of them have master's degrees. I think when you can believe in people and when you can show them a pathway, which Magnet does, then people will rise to the expectation. And because of it, they become better people and they become even better nurses. We're going to help grow you and we're going to help make you the best nurse and the best person that you can be. And that to me is what Magnet is all about. So I'm really proud that we were designated. There are only 70 some, I think it's 74 at last count, hospitals greater than 700 beds that have that designation. About 7% of the hospitals in the country have that designation. And my hospital was the 21st largest in the United States last year. So it's a big place. And to go through that designation process and be successful is something I'm proud of, but more importantly, our nurses are very proud of.
The efforts that you've taken to educate and kind of advance your nursing staff brings to mind, the number one reason why nurses leave an organization is lack of career advancement opportunities. So it's both a way for you to improve quality of patient care and also retain your nurses.
Yeah. And that's critically important in this time because we're nationally in a shortage. You've got an aging workforce and predictions that more people will exit. I've said many a time, I didn't think that celebrating the Year of the Nurse would be nurses on ABC, NBC, CBS News day after day after day. I didn't think that they would be cheered by people down the streets. I didn't envision that we'd have a military flyover over our hospital. I didn't envision that the churches would come together and do prayer parades in our parking lot. It's brought an awareness of what nursing does just to a whole different level. And so to me, that is one good thing I think that will come out of the pandemic. People won't stay in a place where they don't feel respected, valued, nurtured to grow. The way that you'll keep people is whether or not they feel respected and valued and whether they have growth opportunities. You know, when I came to North Carolina, I had no aspiration that I was going to stay and work for one organization for 37 years. But every time I turned around and had an itch or a thought to do something else, there was something else that somebody wanted me to do. And so I had an extraordinary career, but never had to go anywhere else. But for our younger careerists now, they just are much more mobile. There's so many opportunities, but if you build that culture, people will either tell your story for you, so it helps you with recruitment, or they're going to stay and invest in their own development and take advantage of opportunities within the health system. And it helps to be big. You know, our health system with 9 hospitals, 100 office practices, home health, hospice, people don't have to stay in one place. And with more health system consolidation, more integration, those opportunities to move around in a system. You look at some of the big systems like Ascension, there's just mergers and consolidations. And so it just opens up opportunities for people to continue to grow and develop, but never have to leave an organization. There's a fiscal impact as well as a impact on, you know, the people that are left behind that are trying to figure out how to work while you're trying to find a replacement.
Tens of thousands of dollars per RN that leaves.
To provide just some additional insight in your career arc, how did you get to where you are today, especially factors other than education?
It was just being willing to raise your hand and volunteer. I've sometimes volunteered for things that were uncomfortable, wasn't afraid to step into them. And it goes back to something we talked about earlier, being curious and being willing to ask questions, and probably more important, being willing to listen. Building a network of professionals happens over time, but it only will happen if you get involved in activities outside your organization. Early in my career, I spent time looking at my competencies and where I had gaps and how I could fill them.
Yeah, and that's some really valuable insight to our care heroes here. Just taking the risk, even if you don't know where that benefit is immediately going to be coming from.
I noticed in one of your interviews, you spoke about Mindfulness Mondays. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about that, and also about how you stay healthy and how you stay well during this difficult time.
Being mindful of how stress impacts you is really important, and finding ways to build in time to make sure you get enough sleep and you have a nutritious diet and you get enough exercise. Exercise for me was really important, but at the end of a long day, I was always too tired to go, and I could figure out an excuse. So I decided, and I'm not this great morning person, but I decided I'd go in the morning. I got the exercise done. It gave me more energy. I came home, got a shower. I went to work. I didn't have all this at the end of the day going, oh God, I can't go to the gym, can't do this. You asked about Mindful Mondays at work. Every Monday afternoon, there wouldn't be any meetings planned. We'd spend time either on ourselves or time with our teams. And so trying to find that balance, trying to work on joy, health, and well-being for us and for our workforce.
Your career has just been so impressive and amazingly extensive. But if you could do anything to improve healthcare in America, what would you do?
We just have to find a way to make certain that we can invest in the things that make people healthy, and that we're not still investing in sick care. And our healthcare system is still, unfortunately, still organized a lot around sick care. There are things we know that we could do with diet and exercise and transforming cultural norms that have been in place for hundreds of years that can help us have a healthier population. And I think nurses are positioned to be leaders in that space.
And so finally, do you have any final thoughts or advice for our care heroes, Linda?
My final words would be, I couldn't be prouder of what's happened in healthcare during this global pandemic. I think that, as I said earlier, people have stepped up and just really, really gone above and beyond to protect the health and well-being of our communities and of our states. And so I'm proud to be a nurse. I'm proud to be associated with the work that is going on in our organization. I'm so proud of just how we're stepping up and having a loud voice and helping our country and nation recover from this pandemic. And so stay strong. Don't let the things that are easily distracting get you down. Hope is on the way with a vaccination. And I think it is the thing that's going to be the spark that's going to keep our teams pushing hard so that we can get to a new place. I said to somebody the other day, genie's out of the bottle. We're never going back the way we were. Be excited about what you can contribute, because people's health and well-being is the most important thing they have.
What a hopeful final note from Linda. Gerard, now it's time to take us to the handover.
Yes, all right, Care Heroes, here are our top takeaways from this episode. Hard work pays off. Don't let anyone tell you that you don't have what it takes to succeed in something. Only you can determine that. Embrace curiosity and be open to learning. There is always room to grow and evolve, no matter where you are in life. In times of crisis, take the opportunity to step up to the challenge and bring your best. These moments may give you the chance to shine. Don't be afraid to jump into the unknown and take risks. You'll never know how much you can learn and grow from something if you don't take a chance. So get out there, volunteer, and don't be afraid to try something new. Finally, don't forget, we're all human. We all experience pain, fear, and stressful emotions. So always approach people in situations with kindness, respect, and compassion.
Wonderful handover, Gerard. We also want to thank our care heroes for listening, and don't forget to rate our podcast on your favorite podcast app. If you want a shout out on a future episode, just visit careheropodcast.com. Go to the Contact Us page, submit your name, role, and location for a shout out on a future episode.
That's right, Martin. Now it's time for the shout-outs.
We want to give a shout out to Alex, registered nurse from Los Angeles, California. Tamara, registered nurse from Granada Hills, California. And Elizabeth, registered nurse from Siegel, Illinois.
Okay, Care Heroes, thanks again for joining us on the show. We'll be back again soon. Same Care Hero time, same Care Hero channel.
Thanks for listening to CareHero Podcast. Don't miss out on future content. Hit subscribe and rate us in your favorite podcast app. Also, remember to visit us at careheropodcast.com to send us your feedback, sign up for the newsletter, and nominate a Care Hero to be interviewed on a future episode.